Welcome to today's episode of the Bryan G Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Gutierrez. If you're enjoying the show and receiving value from our content, please hit the subscribe button so that you won't miss out on the next episode. Now let's check out today's show. Today we're asking the question, what was the database before we had the database? And it comes down to two simple things. We had the little black book and we had customer service. Now, before I get into that, I just want to make a blanket statement and say that I honestly feel that if everyone worked 2 years of retail or 2 years of working as a server in a restaurant, that the world would be a much better place. People would be so much more patient and so much more understanding. Retail people and food service people understand what true customer service is. We're going to get to that in a minute here, but I just want to make that statement. That's something I've always wanted to announce to the world for the longest time, and I'm taking my opportunity here. Today, I would like to share what my early retail experience taught me about customer service that still applies today. And for those of you who listen to other episodes, early on in my career when I was younger, I did 15 years in retail sales and management. So that's where this experience is coming from. So before the CRM or the database, we had the little black book. And I have to say, my best experience with customer service was when I worked for this one particular New York-based clothing company who was really ahead of their time when it came to customer service. Not only did they offer really great products, I mean, suits sold for $6,000 back then, right? This was really high-end clothing store. Again, New York-based. They're known for the little black shopping bag with little silver letters on it, okay? Wonderful place to work. That location had closed here in Detroit, which is why we don't have it anymore a number of years ago, which I miss dearly. But anyway, before we go down that nostalgic road, let's get back to the point. So what I mean that they were ahead of their time is this is before we had a computerized CRM or a database. And once a month, my manager would page us to her office. So Brian comes to the office, bring the book. So what I would do is I'd go back there and sit at her desk and I'd hand her my book and she would just open it up to a random page, set it down on the desk, point and say, tell me about this guy. Now I worked on the men's floor, so tell me about this guy right here. And without me being able to reference the notes, she was quizzing me on the book. I'd be like, okay, John Smith, he owns a construction company off of Northwestern Highway. It's commercial construction, not residential. And his wife, and gave her name. She's a veterinarian. They have 2 boys. They're into travel hockey, and that's their passion. And they will spend time with the boys and do that travel. They really enjoy doing that together as a family. And his size is a size 44 regular. He has a 35 or 36 inch waist, and his shirt size is 16, 34, 35. And you know what? I'm not making that up for this. I remember that to this day. That's how much was ingrained in my mind. How we had to really know our customers, right? And so, once again, we didn't have, in today's modern CRM or database, I can pull up a name and I can type all that in there and I can just read it real quick. If I know what client was coming in, I could read it, right? Update myself, got it. But back then, we had to put that into our brains, right? And in our little black book. And God forbid we lose the little black book. We guarded that thing with our lives, right? So that really taught me the importance of knowing details about people and remembering like what their families were, not only what they were interested in, what their needs, what their wants were, but to really put that into my head. This was important because we used to have several people from the same firm shop in our store, right? We had a very unique clothing store. Like I said, it was a high-end fashion store. There was only one store like it in Metro Detroit. And so a lot of the same coworkers from the same companies from the same firms would come in. I had like 2 guys from I forget if it's Young and Rubicam or BBDO, but they would come in. One guy wrote the copy for commercials. The other guy was the creative director who films the commercials. And obviously they knew each other, but they would come in at separate times. And back then, a lot of my clients would come in 4 times a year with every season change, and they'd update their wardrobes. They'd come in and spend about $5,000 or $6,000 4 times a year because it's spring, because it's summer, because it's fall, because it's winter, right? And so, again, without the aid of electronic database to remind us, I just had to remember when these different guys came in who bought what, because of course I can't be selling the same jacket, right? Or the same suit or whatever sweater to the same guys who are working at the same firm, right? So all of that in a very manual way really taught me how to listen, right? Listen to what they wanted, and also to remember what their likes were, what their dislikes were, what looked good on them, what didn't look good on them. Make sure we didn't duplicate that same look for somebody else. Okay. So that's where I really learned how to listen. Now, another standard that was encouraged by us there was that we were to be completely honest with our clients and how they looked, right? We had to be completely honest because, quite honestly, we had an image to maintain. This is a high-end clothing store. This is nationally known, okay, or internationally known. It was our reputation on the line. When people left our store, they had to look good. And this is why we had to be completely honest and actually be true consultants and not just salespeople. A salesperson sells a sweater. A consultant sells the right sweater in the right color that complements that person that's wearing it, right? So here's an example of that. I had a client who his family owned a lot of shopping malls in the Midwest. Okay, it was a pretty well-known family. This was the son of the father who came in. He was a client of mine, and one day he came in with his wife, and he said, "Hey, Bryan, I'm like going to this very important party, this very important fundraiser, and I need to look great, man. I need to look amazing. This is a big, big deal to me." And he looked over my shoulder. And he's like, "Oh, I love this jacket. I want this jacket here." So he goes over and he pulls it off the rack and he throws it on. Now, that's fine. He found an item that he really liked, but it was not right for him. And what I mean by that is this: different cuts of clothing look different on different people, right? Tall people wear a different or have different lines than short people, for example. Thin people, wide people, right? And this guy was, and I'm not being mean here. I'm just illustrating this for the conversation. Is that this guy he was kind of shaped like a pear. Okay, he was thin up top in the shoulders, and as you went down, he got wider at the hips, wider in the thighs, and so him choosing this 3-button jacket did not look good on him. So it was a sport coat with 3 buttons instead of the traditional 2, which raises the neckline, which makes someone look more boxy, which a tall, thin person can pull that off a lot better than someone who's shorter or more portly, like this guy was. Okay. And so he pulls that out and he's looking at it and he goes, "What do you think?" And I was honest. I said, "Look, man, I don't want to sell that to you." And he paused and he looked at his wife and he looks back at me and he's like, "Now, wait a minute." It's like, "Don't you have to say that you like what I like?" And without hesitating, I said, "No, I don't. And you know what? You don't want me to. You don't want me to just agree with you." Now, out of the corner of my eye as I'm saying this, I see a raised eyebrow from his wife out of the corner of my eye. Now, when this happens, you have to tread very carefully your next few words. You know what I mean? You have to tread lightly here because now she's taking notice. And so what I did is I just paused for a moment, took a breath, and instead of giving him like the high fashion attitude, right, about what looks good but doesn't, blah, 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 what I did is I slowed down my speech and I looked him in the eye, and then I turned to her and then back to him, right? So I acknowledged both of them. And I said, "Look, when you go to that party, if I put you in an outfit that you like but doesn't look good on you, your friends and family are going to notice. The people in the room are going to notice. Okay? And then you're you're going to pick up on that vibe, and you're not going to feel good about yourself in that moment. Okay. And then what's going to happen? You're never going to come back here and shop with me. If you don't go out of here looking amazing and fabulous to this amazing, fabulous party that you're going to, you're never going to come back to me again. And guess what? That's bad for my business, because what's good for my business is you coming back to me. What's good for my business is you say, hey, I need a certain look for this event. I need to look fabulous. And if you leave here looking fabulous, boom, that's good for my business. So respectfully, no, I'm not going to agree with you every time. And I'm sorry, but I don't agree with this jacket. What you need is the 2-button, and I have something here in a very similar fabric that has a similar texture to it that's going to drape very nicely and is going to complement your figure better. Okay, we're not going to put the pleats in the pants, because the pleats in the pant, the way you're built, is going to buckle up front and it's going to look frumpy. So we're going to go with no pleats in the front on the pant. We're going to go with the traditional 2-button jacket. And by the way, I've got this great shirt, perfect texture, perfect fabric, right? It's going to work with your complexion and also complement the other clothes you're wearing. This is the outfit you want. This is what you're asking me for. Go in there and try it on. Boom. And guess what? He tried it on and it looked amazing. And his wife was like, this is it. She was great. Like at first she was kind of skeptical. Like I said, this is a family that doesn't get told no very often, right? And and so but I had to, because in that particular situation I was the expert and they asked me for expert advice. And once I did that in a very respectful way that was working in the best benefit of him and his wife, that built trust. And by the way, he went to that party. He came back a couple months later. He was just walking through the mall. Okay. He wasn't coming in, but he saw me through the open door and he just poked his head in for a minute. And he's like, hey, Bryan, that outfit killed. He's like, that was fantastic. Thank you so much. I'll see you in a couple months when it's fall. I'm like, great. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. And they walk down their way. But that's where I learned the importance of trust. And trust is so important with all of this. Okay. And another level of customer service that this store, like I said, was really ahead of their time in, was the fact that I'll be putting together an outfit or a series of outfits for someone. Say they're going on a trip, right? A business trip. And hey, I need something that's casual for this, for recreation, but then I also need business attire for, for the meeting itself. And it's like, okay, great. So I had this one customer. I've done it several times, but in this case, this one customer, this is back in the 90s when the casual vest was really popular with the Nehru collar, which is just a plain collar without the points on it. Okay, that was like kind of the look then. And so it is great pair of pants, great shirt to go with it, had a bunch of other things. And he really wanted this, let's say, casual fashion vest to go with it, and we didn't have it. We didn't have his size. We had the great, perfect vest, but he was leaving the next day. He didn't have any time, and we didn't have it in his size, but that's the look he wanted really bad. And I could see the disappointment. He's running out of time rather than change the whole outfit. So I said, all right, hang on one second. I went to the corner. I got on the phone, told my manager, I need to step out of the phone. I need to step out of the store for a minute. I have to go walk a client through. And she's like, sure, go ahead. Hung up, got someone to cover my shift. And then I took that guy and we walked the rest of the mall. There were 2 other anchors, right? And so what I did is I took him down to the other store where I just happened to know, because we all kind of know everything that's going on there, right? And so I took him to another store. And I said, okay, we're bringing the pants, bring that shirt. Let's bring it here. I put it in a bag. Let's go down here around the corner. I know they have something for you that's going to work great with this. So instead of just sending him out of the store and say, hey, go to that store next, I walked him down there. My manager allowed me to do that. So we just walked out of there, walked down to another store, and we come walking in, and there was a guy there, because like I said, we all know each other, right? And so another sales guy there said, hey man, what's going on? This is my client, so-and-so, and we're just gonna look for a piece here, and I'll just give it to you. You can ring him up, right? He's like, sure, why not? So anyway, I walked him through, tried this, and this on, put him in a fitting room in that other store. And he tried it on. He tried on the pants and the shirt that I was selling up, and then he tried on this other vest. And we had three options there, and he tried all three on, and that was the one that worked. And I gave it to the other guy from the other store, and he just rang it up. And my guy got his outfit, right? And so that was something that was never done by other retail stores. To leave your store, take a client to technically a competing store, and then help them find what they needed to complete their outfit in the other competing store. That was something that was not ever done, ever done. But I did it because it was in the best interest of my client. I knew that they had it there, that we didn't have it in his size, but I did fulfill his need. He had a need for that outfit. He had a want for that outfit, right? And we made it happen. And so um, that early standard of service, customer service, right, taught me the value of improvisation, putting the needs of the client first. I didn't get any commission on that vest that I sold in another store. The other guy rang it up. It wasn't my store. There wasn't an employee there, right? But that was okay because that's what he needed. And again, getting back earlier to the early example, feeling confident about yourself, having that outfit, because this is clothing, right? Fashion is that to feel good, like, oh, yeah, this is the outfit. This is it. I feel great. I'm going on this business trip knowing that I feel good about my appearance going into this particular situation, right? So that's where I learned improvisation, doing whatever it takes within reason, of course, but do whatever it takes to put the client's needs first and to help them with not only their needs, but also their wants, right? And that's a huge part of customer service is not just having a set standard on how you do things all the time, but you have to have the ability to improvise and you have to adapt to the situation. Now, there's another aspect to customer service, and that's when it may not benefit me personally, but it can be one of the most meaningful customer service experiences when you do something for a client where there's no benefit for you, where you're strictly doing it just for them. And this is one of my favorite retail stories that I will share with you now. So this is no longer with the New York-based company. I had switched companies by then, and I was working in downtown Birmingham, which is in Michigan here, for those of you who are not familiar with it. And so basically a very chic downtown with a lot of high-end shopping as well. So I'd gotten out of the high-end mall, and I came into this great downtown shopping community. Really nice. So I worked at this store and I was selling suits now. And so, I do have to just kind of back up and say that one thing that I really miss, this little side note about selling suits is one, something doesn't happen anymore, really, because the business suit really isn't part of it used to dominate the business wardrobe, and now it's just a very limited part. If you have a gala to go to or a very important board meeting to attend, or some kind of very important client, like, it's very limited as to guys wearing suits these days. But it was a lot more prevalent then. Back then, a number of years ago, it was put on your suit and go to work. That was your basic business attire. And I really enjoyed selling suits because it was kind of like it was like the barber shop, right? So, men, when we go to the barber shop, right? When we go to the barber, what's it like? We go there, we sit down, we're talking with other guys about guy stuff, right? It's just a very manly experience, right? And it's just great. We just that kind of comfort level, and we really share different things. I mean, with all hairstylists, but in a barbershop, how guys do it, right? It's a great experience, right? It's just we're very comfortable in that space, right? And there's just something about it that's just relaxing and very comfortable, and just a really great environment to be with for us guys. And that's what I liked about selling suits, because you had to take some time to do it. So businessman comes in and you're like, okay, what are you looking for? All right, I want this kind of suit. Great. And then you select that, right? And then you go into the fitting rooms And with all men's suits, they need to be tailored, or at least back then, the majority of the suits need to be tailored. The pants didn't have a hem on them, right? And everything needed to be fitted. And that was just assumed for business attire that would take place. So you'd pick out the suit that someone liked, you'd take them back into the fitting room, and then you would call out the tailor, and then the tailor would come out. They try on the suit, they put you in front of the tri-fold mirror so you can kind of see, 200 degrees around you. And then the tailor would touch everything up, right? And, mark the hem and things like that. Well, over time, my tailor really had confidence in me and would allow me to mark the suits for him because he was really busy. All tailors are, right? There's always too much work to do, and so he trusted me to do the fitting. So I used to really enjoy that part of it. One was the fashion part, picking out what looked good on people, which was great. I really liked that. But what I also liked in selling suits where they would come out of the fitting room and I'd have the soft measuring tape around my neck. I'd have the tailor chalk, right? And so you go up there and you talk and you'd brush the shoulder down and make sure everything's good. Mark if the collar need to be, lowered or not. So he'd mark that and then put their sleeves down. And fun fact, everybody has one arm longer or shorter than the other, and everybody also has one leg that's longer or shorter than the other. And it's not necessarily because your bones are different sizes, but it's how it's our posture, it's our gait. We all seem to favor one side or the other. Fun fact. So anyway, I used to love that part. Brush the shoulders, you know, pinch the shoulder, lower the collar if we need to, have them turn around, look at the sleeves. We're going to mark right sleeve, left sleeve, and then have the trousers, and you take a stiff measuring stick and you measure up from the floor, which shows the difference. Then you mark where the hem's going to be for the pants. And it was just a great experience because it was in that time it would be that barbershop experience. While I'm marking the suit, it would be like, so how's business going? Oh, it's great. Excellent. How's the family doing? Oh, yeah, my son's playing baseball. My daughter's playing soccer. Oh, that's great. You know what I mean? Like just that whole kind of just personal barbershop experience, which we don't get anymore because everybody buys everything online. And now there's all preset sizes. But I used to really enjoy that part of it. That's just kind of a side note. But it was a great way to really get to know your clients at a real personal level. And I really enjoyed that part of it. So now, back to customer service. So when you're on a retail sales floor, they have a thing called an up system. So you have more than one person on a sales floor, right? And there's an order as to who gets the next client that comes to the door, or who's up, right? So that's the up system. So we had just a little log, little piece of paper on one of the cabinets, right? And it'd be like, all right, who's up? All right, Joe's up, right? And then when Joe got his customer, Brian, you're up. Okay. So anyway, it was a Saturday, and again, selling suits in this other store downtown Birmingham. And it was definitely like a higher end shopping district in a small downtown, right? And so this mother and son come walking through the front door. I'm going to slow down the pace here for a minute. So mother and son walk in the front door, and there was one guy, and he was this old crotchety guy, man. He was this old school retail guy that just, he drove me nuts. He was rude, obnoxious. He was awful, right? I don't know how else to say it. He was terrible. He's just a terrible human being, right? I mean, he sold a lot only because he'd been around for a million years, right? And he had a big clientele. But anyway, he was just a real jerk of a guy. But anyway, he looks at the front door and sees this mother and son come walking in. Now the son's really young, looks college age, and the mom, is mom, and so they come walking in, and he was up. And so just under his breath, he's like, oh, great. I can't believe this. Like, look at this. He's like, look at those two in the front yard. I can't believe I'm burning it up on this. He's like, these people don't belong here. And I'm like, whoa. Hey, yeah. Like, geez, man. Like, he's up. He's like, look at him. He's like, these people don't belong here. I said, all right, how's this? Let me take the up. Let me take this one. And he's like, what? I'm like, I'll take it. You take mine. I'll take this up. I'll help these people. And he's like, fine, dude, whatever. he's he's like, good luck with that, really dismissive. Wow, real jerk of a guy, man. I do not miss that guy. so anyway, so I just approached them and I'm like, hey, welcome to our store. Nice to see you. And I could tell that from talking to them that although my coworker said it very crudely, they don't belong here. I could tell that they have not been in this kind of higher end kind of fashion environment before, right? You can tell by the body language when people are looking up and down and all around, and their shoulders are kind of down a little bit, not quite sheepish, right? But I could tell that they were not comfortable in this environment, which is why I took this up and didn't let jerk guy take this one, because I knew that they needed some hand holding here. Like I could read that in the body language. And so and when you're in a high fashion environment, some people can be very rude in that industry, and it can be really embarrassing for some people if you're not familiar with that environment. And I did not want that to happen to these two. I don't know what it was. Something just told me take it. So I went up to them, like I said, and I greeted them from talking to them. And then I look, you have to get to know people, right? And so I just started asking them questions like, hey, Greg, thanks for coming in. Come on in. You walked him in. So what are you looking for today? Where are you coming from? It's like, oh, well, my son needs a suit. And I'm like, okay, great. What's the occasion? Is this for work? Is this for, do you have a, like a party or a wedding to go to or something? And he's like, no, it's, this is for work. And she's like, my son here is going to be an accountant. And I'm like, hey, congratulations. He's like, he's the first one in our family to graduate school. And I'm like, or college, right? And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I'm like, great. So let me guess, you want something in navy blue or charcoal gray, right? And he was kind of looking at me like, I don't know. Because back then there was kind of an unofficial standard for what accountants, right, bookkeepers, they dress more conservatively, right? They can't seem too wild because they're keeping the books. There's kind of a whole science behind the formal business dress code, right? Unofficially, right? So I said, no problem. I said, we're going to totally hook you up here. And her mom's like, well, I don't even know like what size he is. Like he hasn't owned a suit before. I don't know what size he is. And I said right off the cuff, I said, you know what? You're 42 long. I can see it. Let's go check it out. And so I took him over there and just went to the section here and said, okay, here's a few different options that we have, for the kind of work that you're doing. We have to instill confidence, when you're going on interviews and things like that for your first job. So I'm gonna set you up with like the quintessential interview suit for your profession. Okay. And so I grabbed the 42 long right off the rack, and sure enough, it fit him perfectly, which I just amazed his mom. She was like, how did he know what size he was? And in my mind, I'm like, it's okay, lady. I've done this for a long time. I can look at someone and know what size they are. Like, but that was great. And so she was like, oh, that's great. Oh, it's beautiful. Like whatever, And so as we're talking, yeah, we really talked about how their family came from very humble beginnings, and how hard he had worked and got a scholarship, and had, is, like I said before, is the first one to graduate college. And so his mom wanted to give him the real experience, right? She wanted to treat him like he's never been treated before. And I could see it in her eyes that this wasn't just about buying a suit. She wanted to give him the real treatment. She wanted to, for once in her life, to really do something special for her son. And so, picking up on this, I was going to give her that. I was going to give her that no matter what. And I thought about the other people in the room, and I'm so glad that I took him on as a client, because that other jerk guy would have totally blown them off. That other guy would have treated them like crap. And I knew that they had enough money to buy a suit today, but they didn't have a lot of money. And he would have picked up on that. And he would have totally blown them off. Anyone else in that room would not have given them the customer service that she was hoping for. So we pick out the right suit. And we want the nice charcoal gray. It was perfect. He was a tall, thin guy. Like the lines looked really good on him. And so I said, okay, great. So this is the great suit that we're going to do. So let's go over here to the accessories, and you're going to need shirt and tie, right? So, so what I do, or what I used to do, is and I was very intentional about this. Is I took the suit and I laid it down on a countertop, and I laid it down very nicely, so laid very flat. And then I grabbed a couple shirts in his size, and I just knew he was a 15 and a half, 34, 35. So I just grabbed those, and I would put it in the jacket, fold the jacket over, so it looks like it was together laying down, right? And then I grabbed a couple of ties. If you do a quick knot, you can set it in there so it looks set up on the counter. It's a really great way to present things, right? So anyway, so I laid down the jacket, put like the shirt in there. I did like a white shirt, then I had a blue shirt, and I laid the blue shirt on top. And then I got a couple of ties, did a quick half knot, threw it in there. I'm like, what do you think of that? How does that look to you? And he's like, oh, yeah, I guess that looks really good. He says, I don't know really which one to go to. And I said, well, like this will complement your complexion, your hair, right? I said, this will be really, really good. And, not to get too hokey here, but it also brings out your eyes. I'm like, that this will really look good on you. Okay. And he's like, sure, yeah, it looks great. The mom's like, oh my God, it's beautiful. I've never seen such a beautiful tie, blah, 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 right? And and I brought out a few more options. So I take that one out and I set it off to the side to put another one in. I said, now, if you're going to run with one suit, here's the thing about suits. People forget the suit, but they remember the shirt and the tie. And this is very true. This is very true to this day. And I said this to him, and I believe this too, is that the necktie is the most personal thing that a man will wear. It really does reflect his taste. It reflects his mood. Okay. Now, in this case, we're in a business context. So we want something that is you, but is also appropriate for your business environment. And I said, so what we'll do is, since you can't purchase more than one suit, we're going to go with 2 shirts and 2 ties with the same suit. And I'm going to show you how this is going to give you 2 totally different looks. And sure enough, when I took the first one out, put the second one in, a couple choices there, he made a choice, and it was like, wow, dude. It's like, that looks amazing. And I said, hey, it's just like buying 2 suits, because no one's going to remember the suit, but they're going to remember the shirt and the tie. You have 2 full outfits here, even though it's the same suit. I'm like, just trust me, it'll totally work. And that way, if you get called up for a second interview, you'll have a second look, right? And then after you get the job, you can come back and buy more suits. And he was like, oh, that's great, right? And his mom's loving this, right? She's like, oh, this is what you wanted. So now I say, okay, let's go into the fitting room. Let's get you fitted up, okay? So I grabbed all the stuff and, come with me, throw the trousers over my shoulder, right? And grab the shirts and ties, throw those around my neck, I kind of drape it all over myself and carry it back into the fitting room. And I said, okay, so go in there real quick and, put on, you keep your t-shirt on, but throw on the trousers, right? Throw the jacket on, and we're going to come fit you for this. Now, so I put him into the fitting room, and I go in the back room for the tailor. Now, like I said before, the tailor used to trust me in marking like the suit and everything, like for the fitting, but I wanted to give his mom the treatment that she was looking for. Okay. So I wasn't going to do it. I went back into my tailor, and his name was Zach, Greek guy. He was awesome. I love this guy. He was so great. Did great work, had a great personality. So I said, hey, Zach. He's like, what? I'm busy. I'm like, Zach, you got to put that down. Like, I got a huge client out here. I got a major client out here. I need this guy to look like $1 million, man. I need you to give him the works. And he's like, oh yeah? They're like, yeah. I said, I need you to come out here, man. You gotta, because he had a great personality. Like, he was the perfect tailor. I'm like, you gotta bring it, man. This is a really high roller. This is like my top guy. I'm like, you gotta come out here and give this guy the works, And so he's like, all right. So he throws the tape around his neck, and he comes out. And this young kid comes out of the fitting room, stands in front of the 3-way mirror, right up on a little step. He elevated a little bit. And he steps out. And my tailor does a wonderful job. Oh my goodness, Zach did such a great job. He was just like, he's like, oh, how are you, sir? Oh, this is such a wonderful choice. And, but he knew by looking at it, it wasn't our best suit. He knew it was the lower end suit in our store. And he kind of looks at me out the corner of his eye without him looking, like, what? And I'm like, yeah. And so, so he's like, oh, sir, this is so great. He said, when I'm done with you, you're going to look like $1,000,000, right? Here we go. And he does the shoulder pad and he marks the collar and does the thing. And he's like, oh, we're so glad to have your business here. I mean, he did a fantastic job, man. He was like the one tailor with amazing personality. You know how some really skilled people, when they do a skilled trade, like they might be great at their trade, but they don't have the great personality to go with it. Well, this guy did, man. And so he gets down on one knee and, to mark the bottom of the hem. And so, so the legs are here, right? And behind the customer. And then he kind of looks at me and, like, without saying it out loud, he kind of mouths the words like, this guy. And I'm like, I gave him the look like, yes, this guy, give him the works, right? Because he knew from meeting him, this wasn't like the high roller. It was like, he didn't know what's going on, but he kind of shrugged his shoulders like, all right. So anyway, he keeps going and he's like, oh, this is great. Oh, wonderful. Like, I can't wait to work on this for you. Right. And he kills it, man. My tailor just kills it for him. So anyway, he's like, I'm all done. I'm like, Zach, thank you so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. And he's like, no problem. He's like, for you and this client, he's like, anything you want. If you need me again, I'll be back in 5 minutes. I'm like, beautiful. Thank you so much. And then he walks out. So the mom is loving this, right? This is what she wanted. She's like, oh, this is so great. Now, here's the thing is people men who've bought suits before, you never usually try on the whole outfit, right? The dress shirt's folded, it's your correct size, right? But you normally don't try everything on. Like, you try the suit on, it goes into the back, and then you just, we just bag the shirts and ties. We wrap everything up in tissue really nice, right? And you just take that home and then you unpin it and you wash it or take it to the cleaner, right? And so, but her mom was like, she's like, oh, you know what? Can you try it all on? And at first I was like, try it all on, because it's not what normal people do in my mind. And I'm like, oh, she wants to see the whole thing together. She's like, I really want to see it. Can you do the white shirt and that tie? And she's like, I just want to see it before you take it back. And I'm like, sure, we can do that, right? And so, and of course, like, the poor son, he doesn't know what's going on. Like, he just had this guy marking his clothes and whatever. He's never done this before. He's just kind of like, okay. And so the mom's like, yeah, try the shirt and the tie on. And I said, okay. I said, all right, I'm going to put you back in the fitting room here. I said, here's the tie, and that. I said, but give me 1 minute, because this thing's been all folded up. It's full of pins and everything. I said, I'm going to go back and I'm going to just press this for you real quick. And so I just grabbed the shirt and I ran it to the tailor shop. And so one thing that if I ever hit the lotto is something I'm going to have in my basement, and that is the clothing press that pulls down. Okay. And it's really wide. It's about 4 feet wide, 18 inches deep. And it's a big steam press. So the small boiler comes with it. So you lay down like a whole sleeve of a shirt and you pull the top down, you hit a button and like the steam hits, and then the vacuum hits it, pulls all the moisture out, and you've done a whole arm, right? So this is so they dry cleaners have this, right? This is what they use. And like I said, one day if I hit the lotto, I'm going to have one of these just because they're so much fun. So anyway, so I go into the back and I'm going to hit it on the steam press, right? So I'm like yanking out the pins and the plastic and everything. And then my tailor's back there like, who was that guy? This guy wasn't a high roller. I'm like, Zach, he was. He's my guy. He was kind of busting my stones off. He's like, I'm busy. Don't pull me away from this. But he was joking, right? And I was like, no, man, he is. He's my high roller. He's my guy. He's like, whatever, shrugs his shoulders and starts going back to sewing again. Meanwhile, I'm yanking all the stuff out of the shirt. I get the press and I hit the sleeve, front panel to the other one. And I'm like pressing this thing. And I was really good at it. The tailor used to let me bring in my clean clothes and I could press them in the morning before we opened the store. I'd show up early. So I was really good at it. So I'm like, bam, bam, bam. And so I get the shirt looking like it came from the dry cleaner, perfectly pressed, amazing. And I put it on a hanger, although I didn't have to because I was walking around the corner, but I put it on a hanger, right? And I bring it out. I'm like, here you go. Here's your shirt, freshly pressed for you. This is going to look beautiful. So go ahead. Why don't you put the shirt on, put them in the fitting room. He goes into the fitting room, puts on a shirt, comes out, and then we have the tie. And so I hand him the tie, right? You remember he chose two ties. I hand him one of the ties that went with that shirt, and I said, "Here we go. Let's tie this up." And I could tell in that real quick second, as I was handing him the tie, his eyes got really big, and I realized he didn't he didn't know how to tie a tie. Like, this guy never owned this before. So as I'm handing it to him, I pick up on this and I said, "Hey, before you start tying your knot, I want to show you the new half knot that we're doing these days. It's very high fashion. It's very trendy right now. And I don't know, like, not everybody knows how to do this, although everybody did." I said, "But let me show you how to do this real quick." And I grabbed this other tie. And I'm like, "All right, so here we go. So here we are, standing in front of the mirror, side by side, right?" It's like, okay, so we get this around this way. This side's higher than the other. Throw this one over. He throws it over. Bring it around, up and through. Tug, tug. Get the dimple right here, right in the center. Boom, boom, boom. Right? So you tug it straight down to snug it, and then you pull at the collar, snug it this way, and you get a perfect little triangle. Then you cinch it up, and there you go. So as to not embarrass him in front of his mother, right? I showed him how to tie the tie, and his mom is just beside herself. She she thinks it's the best thing ever, right? She's like, "Oh my God, my son looks so handsome, blah blah blah," And we put it all together. We put it on. He tucked in his shirt, and all these things. We had him put on the belt, right? Like all the things you normally don't do, right? But for her, it meant so much to her, right? And she is just beaming. And it made me feel so good to do that. Like I said, I had other clients. I mean, I spent so much time with them. I could have picked up 3 other clients and made more money that day, just like Jerk was doing. But you know what? For this experience, I wanted to do this. I needed to do this. And I knew how important that was to them. And so I wanted to provide that kind of experience for them. And so what I did when he was done is that while he was changing, I took the other shirt and I took it into the back while he was changing there. And I said, "Look, let me press the other shirt for you, so you're good to go," right? So I went back there, right, pressed the shirt, put it on a hanger, right? He came out, and then I went outside, got a really nice zipper garment bag for him, and wrapped the ties in tissue paper, put them in a gift box, although we didn't need it. It wasn't a gift, but I put them in a gift box for him. So it looked really, really beautiful. Put it in the bag and said, "Hey, thank you so much for coming out. Your suit's going to be done in in about a week or 10 days. I'll give you a call when the tailoring's done, and you'll come out here and pick up your suit." And I said, "Hey, thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate your business." The mom was just ear to ear smile. I mean, it was awesome. It was the most favorite retail experience that I had. And as it went out the door, she's arm in arm, walking him out, right? Probably saying, "Oh, this is what I wanted to do for you. My son, the first person in the family to graduate from college." That made my day. That made me feel so incredibly good about that. And that experience taught me the value of empathy. Okay. Really understanding what people want, what people need, what they're looking for. And in this case, what they need, not out of a physical necessity, but she had the need to do something special, right? Something special for her son. And that's where I learned that lesson there, which I will never forget. So now let's bring this back to real estate, because I'm sure people are wondering, okay, Bryan, this is wonderful what you did in a past life, but how does this apply to real estate? Well, this is where I learned at a very early age and has been reinforced over time, all of these principles, right? And so on a very real, very visceral level for me. And how this relate to my real estate business now is that, one of my favorite pieces of feedback that I've gotten from people, from a client was, something to the effect of, "Bryan told us what we needed to hear, even when we didn't want to hear it, but we're glad that he did," right? Kind of going back to that first client who was buying the outfit for the party, and we had to compliment his body type, right? It was going back to that where you need to be honest with people and truly share with them to help them achieve what they want to, right? Don't redirect them in their goal, but help them achieve that goal on a higher level through honesty, through empathy, right? And there's something that's unique about real estate is that everything in real estate is emotion driven. Okay. And it's not only emotion driven, but also the stakes are very high, right? We're talking about 200, 300, 600, $700,000, right? I mean, this is a really big deal. And most reasons for people moving are emotion driven. One example of that are empty nesters. I think the greatest example of this are empty nesters. So you've had a great home that you've lived in for many, many years. You've raised a family there, and your kids have now grown and are successful. They've gone to college, they've graduated there, perhaps, or started their own business, right? And now they've moved on. They've started their own families or have set out on their own, which is, we as parents, as painful it is, it's our job to raise our kids to leave, right? If our kids leave and do it successfully, we have done our job, as much as we're going to desperately miss them, right? My kids are still young, but I'm still dreading the day now. But anyway, so empty nester, right? You've raised your kids, they're up, they're successful, they have their own lives, you've done your great job as a parent. Now you're in this large house that requires a lot of maintenance, and it's just simply too big for you. So empty nesters come to the realization that, hey, we need to downsize this home to something more practical for just the husband and wife, for us to, live out our golden years, right? A nice little cozy home somewhere, maybe in a quieter neighborhood, whatever your tastes are. But the empty nesters need to downsize. Now, you can look at it at a very practical level and say, yeah, that home's too big and, it's too much to maintain. And so you're going to downsize. However, this is the home where you created all those great memories in. This is the home where you raised the family when they were young, right? And their onesie pajamas all the way until their college years, right? So yes, this is a big empty home, but there's a lot of memories that were made and created in this home. So understanding the practical side of we need to downsize, it's very hard emotionally because all the great memories for the last 20 some years have been in this big home, right? And so that's where empty nesters are very conflicted, very emotional. They're happy for their kids, but they're sad because now they need to sell the large home where all these family memories were made, and they need to move to something else, which, yes, is practical, but is still unknown. And will they make those new kind of memories there that they did here, right? So yeah, it's a very practical, like logical frame of mind, but it's also very emotional. Another thing too, first-time home buyers. Of course, it's like, oh my goodness, you're buying your very first home. I remember this too. We're all first-time home buyers at one point, right? And you remember you're so hopeful. And you're just like, oh, this is great. We're getting our own place. The feeling of autonomy, of independence, right? I'm a first-time home buyer. I can't wait to, finally get my castle, right? To finally get my piece of the American pie, right? Like my home, right? And this is a wonderful thing, right? And so the expectation there is just so great, is to first-time homebuyers wanting to have a real positive experience because they're so excited about it. And by the way, I love first-time homebuyers. I work with everybody, but I love empty nesters. I love first-time homebuyers because I just think being the first step in that process and really giving someone a great experience of buying their first home, there's something really special about that. All my clients are special, but these different circumstances, especially first-time home buyers, there really is something special about that. Someone finally buying their first home. And in a lot of cases, that's the first step to generating wealth, is home ownership. So on many, many levels, first-time home buyers are just wonderful. It's a great experience. I do everything I can to make that experience great for them, as I do with all my other clients too. But having an elevated sense of empathy, listening to people's needs and wants, building trust through understanding are the core requirements for customer service. I will never say that I know what you're going through because I'm not you. Okay. Like the empty nesters. I don't say, oh, I know what you're going through. No, I'm not you. I can't claim that. Right. But what I can do is seek to understand what you're going through and what you're experiencing. And a good agent will do that. We will ask the right questions and know your situation well enough to be okay. This is where you're at. This is what your intentions are. This is what your goals are, and to always remind ourselves that everything is emotion backed, and we're going to do everything we can to give you a great experience. And you know what? Kind of getting back to our beginning, to what was the database, right? Before database. No matter what amazing CRMs are developed, no matter what amazing databases are created, okay, no matter what awesome AI driven software is created, nothing will replace sincere human connection and personal relationships. Now, we can use software and, now we can use software instead of like a physical little black book, right? To become more efficient, right? But and as an example of that is, in my database, if I wanted to look up that young gentleman who's the accountant and I had forgotten his name, with a modern database, I could plug in accountant as a search word, and boom, it would come up because I would have that in his notes. See, so we can use a database to become more efficient, right? Um, but it's a lot more. Customer service is a lot more than just gathering and collecting that information, even for convenience sake, right? It's about creating personal relationships with our clients where the exchange is mutually beneficial. I really enjoy the company of my clients. And over time, as we developed a deep level of trust, that opens the door to honest communication, genuine connection that leads to a successful transaction, but it also leads to an amazing experience. And that's the difference between a transaction and an experience, is a high level of customer service, of customer caring, of actually caring about the people that we're working with. And this is something that any good agent and myself, we strive to do all the time, right? I really want to get to know what's important to you and provide that for you. So when you're interviewing agents like me, ask for examples of what kind of customer service they provide. Okay? Are they really listening to you? Do they really understand you? Are they, merely feeding you anecdotes to make you laugh, right? And make you feel like they're connecting? Or are you really making a genuine connection? There's a lot of great agents out there. Okay. I'm not going to say that I'm the only one. There's a lot of great agents out there who do this, right? You need to find the one that you feel the most comfortable with. After all, for most of us, the home we own is our biggest asset, and it's important to have a trusted advisor to protect that investment and to also protect your needs and your wants and protect your interests. Anyway, thank you so much. Take care.